All right, so which side of the family, these are some of our questions we have in the audience, which side of the family is your grandmother on? So which side, so your Emily Post was on your father's side, was that
Yep,
correct?
my dad's side. That's how Post came down the tree, my dad's side.
Okay, so how do you feel today? Because if you got married, and it's very prevalent today in society for women to keep their maiden name, how do you feel about that?
I feel fine about it, and I will keep mine. I mean, this is business, let's face it. It makes a lot of sense to have Post in my name, and it is my name. So I will probably continue professionally to be Anna Post. I think it'll depend on my future husband's last name, whether I want to take that socially or not. But it might be sort of a Hillary Rodham Clinton type thing where I'm Anna Post such and such socially, but for business, yeah, it'll be Post.
Yeah, I think that's always an interesting thing, but it seems so common today. Okay, how can you graciously, respectfully, I like this, graciously and respectfully shut down someone who has hijacked a meeting by complaining?
By complaining. You turn to this person and say, you know, okay, Sarah, thank you for voicing your concerns. Let's talk a little bit more about this later. I'd like to get back to XYZ, just the way you would when anybody gets off of subject here. You just say, thank you for raising, you know, these concerns, or, you know, I appreciate the things that you just brought to light. I want to keep us moving today. I want to keep us on our agenda, which is respectful for everyone's time.
Do you ever have contentious things that come up in meetings?
Oh, sure.
Because you have family. I mean, oh my God.
We're a business, we're a family just like everybody else. It's not like we run around bickering all the time, but we'll have differences of opinion and we'll talk it out just like anybody does in business or does in a family. In fact, I think that's why we're successful, is that we have this conversation all the time.
So you're talking manners all the time at home?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Well, maybe not all the time. Every now and then I say, okay, enough, no work talk. we're done.
Can you imagine that's your life, talking about good manners? I mean, yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, is that polite? That's the question. Okay. So what's your take on people twittering during a conference session? So, and I've been to conferences like that too. And if I'm getting busted right now because we had a success strategies event, and I blogged the whole time, who did that? It was smart. It was smart, but a lot of people can't make anything. But what's your take on, like, so you're kind of acting as a reporter, an on-the-spot reporter, but you're a participant. What's your take on that?
I think there's a difference between being an audience member who is part of a really big crowd and being what you just said, which is a participant. If it's something more of a meeting where you're expected to walk away and really be using this knowledge and exchanging it, I think you need to pay attention. I don't think that you're doing your job well if you're not giving the person speaking your full attention. We get so used to multitasking nowadays that we think there's no cost to it. And there can be. It doesn't mean that we're failing if we do this. If you are there more in a journalistic sense, where somebody is public speaking and there's much more of a divide between you and you're just there to take away some knowledge, that's your time to decide what to do with that. And if you want to be reporting out to people who find it useful, sure. But I think there is a difference between the two, though.
You know, I think it's funny how all of this emerging technology and this instant access and this instant knowledge begins to create these new questions and these new rules. And I don't think it's black and white.
No.
I think it's very gray, and a lot of this is best call.
Yeah, well, you've got to be paying attention. You've got to be aware of what's best for the situation, have a little perspective on it, and decide, is this the appropriate use? Cell phone calling somebody because you're running late to let them know, good use. Using a cell phone to take a call in the middle of a meeting to, who knows what, take a non-important personal call, no, very, very wrong use, and I've seen people do it.
Do you ever get inspired and feel like, excuse me, I just want you to know I'm Anna Post. I couldn't help it over here, and I want to correct you?
No. In fact, I can't tell you how resistant to that I would be. That is a can of worms I do not even want to begin to open with somebody. There's this fascinating paradox with etiquette where when someone is being rude or has done something a little bit ungracious, unintentionally or not, the tough thing is dealing with other people's rudeness, because it is considered rude to correct someone else, to point out their faults, worse, to make them feel the error of their ways, much as you might want to show them how annoying they're being. There's this funny little inverse thing where you can't do that. You have to be the bigger person, find a way around it, to be gracious for them, to cover the mistake they're making, whether they know it or not, and to be the bigger person and to move on.
All right, so I'll be the bigger person. Well, actually, though, I agree with you. I mean, I think it really is. And that's the role we need to do. It's not a place to defame people. It's really a place to help. If somebody wants your advice, that's one thing.
I'll put it this way. I do not give out report cards.
Okay.
People will ask me sometimes to grade them, how they're doing, what did they do wrong, and I won't answer. I'm like, this is not what my job is about. That's not what I'm here to do for you. This isn't how we think about it.
Great advice. Okay, so here's a great question. Networking etiquette. Please comment on the do's and don'ts. I mean, today we, you know, that is one of the biggest things we do is get out there and network, especially now that we're in such a big transition period. What are some of the major do's and don'ts?
You know, etiquette is all about building relationships. The knives and the forks are great. The how do you do the introduction, that's great. It's good to know. You want to be confident. You want to be professional, or even just confident in your social life. But a lot of it is about how we react to one another, how we relate to one another, interact. Networking is like the essence of this in business. It's making those relationships. Who knows if business might come or not? So be respectful of that. Make connections with people, show that you're interested, ask them questions, send them an article, let them know about a position that's coming up, somebody you think that they might be interested in meeting. These are all great networking activities. To ask them if they'd like to go out for coffee every now and then, just to exchange. It's an exchange. It's not a quid pro quo. And it's also something that should be voluntary. You know, pressuring people to be part of a networking group isn't how it works. They need to judge what situations are going to be best for them. And if it's obligatory, if it's forced, they're not going to be a real participant in it. And lastly, you know, I think that a good networker really respects the time and opinions of others, and tries to make connections before necessarily an exchange is ever made. I mean, maybe you strike it off right off the bat that you have a business connection and you get to working on that. But it's really about developing a relationship and an interest in another person.
You know, one of the things that's really interesting about that, and I'm from Texas, and I work real hard not, but you know, my friends always say, give her a glass of wine. It's the funniest thing. She loves everybody. You sound like yeah. But one of the things I learned here, and we have a saying, expression in Texas called, we howdied, but we ain't shook yet. That means we've been introduced, but we don't have a formal relationship. And when I came here, and everybody here act like we shook. And I go home, I said, honey, I think they think we all shook. We just howdied. I don't understand it.
Oh, I like that. That is great. It's a good reminder about boundaries. You know, networking's terrific, but you're not necessarily working with this person yet. And so being respectful of their time and how much time that they can be committing to you, you want to be helpful, you don't want to be intrusive.
And I think that that's a really good point. And take time to build a relationship. That's one of my biggest criticism is people meet you and they assume, based on the fact they met you, or you have a title behind your name, that that's going to assume that they have a right to intrude on your time to sell you something. And it's really take the time to get to know people. Yeah. So if you know people, they'll tell you everything you know that you can help meet their needs. Yeah. So stop selling and get knowing. Yeah. Is always what we like to say. We have a couple more questions, and you've got great books here, and I want people to have a chance to get to pick out books, get them autographed by you. What is your personal pet peeve when it comes to etiquette lapses?
When it comes to etiquette lapses, geez, any given day I might have a different one. One that bugs me just a little bit, not a lot. I would never judge someone too harshly on this one, but I do notice when people fail to stand up to shake your hand. I think that that's important to meet them on eye level, whether you're a man or a woman in business. You should stand up to shake somebody's hand. And I think in etiquette when, this is more of a broader, issue, but when people are very, very presumptuous, that they feel that they already, sort of what you were talking about, that they really just take it and run with it right off the bat. And you kind of have to go through the stages of getting to know somebody a little bit. That doesn't mean that you don't work with them and do the work that you need to do. But I'm a little surprised sometimes when people are suddenly very, very personal right off the bat. It was what you were just talking about. This isn't any big deal. This isn't something that I see happen all the time, but I have heard this from some folks. And then I would also say the very last one that can occur is people being very late for meetings.
I agree with you. Being late for meetings is one that, you know, sometimes, especially when you live in a city like this, which has unexpected traffic snarls, that you just go, where does that come from? For no reason. But people who are chronically late, I think that that's telling somebody else, I don't value your time.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I think I agree with you. That's one of my pet peeves. Yeah. All right, so here's going to be your last question, and I would love to know what prompted this question. How do you handle a person who is being rude to a waiter, waitress at dinner when the person is your boss or business contact?
That is
tough.
That is
My
not
boss.
fun. You know, even worse than dealing with someone else's rudeness is observing someone you're with being rude. And I think the best thing that you can do is you don't always have to be apologizing for someone else. That can also be very, very awkward. Take care of yourself. Be responsible for yourself. Be gracious to this person. Be polite to this person as you would any other day. And show that that's this person's behavior. It's not yours. If you feel you have to do damage control for this person later on, that's another story, but it happens privately and it happens later on. If you feel it really needs to happen, they are their own person. You're not always responsible for them and for their actions. You're responsible for yours. So make sure that you're all set. And that's unfortunate to have to sit there through
Well,
that.
I always have a theory that anybody who's touching your food or your drinks, you don't want to piss off. It's just, I mean, that's just common sense.
That's just good common sense, period.
Just,
so
and I
they're
do wonder
taking
about
a real
people.
risk.
I'm like, are you thinking about this? You know. But,
yes, no, I agree completely with you.
Anna, we really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
We focused a lot on things I think were important to people in business today. A lot of times we didn't get as much, so I may invite you back and really dig into your background in dirt. You know, you really got off the hook lightly today, but I thought there was a lot here that people needed to have an opportunity to discuss and learn and take advantage of, and as great walkaways. So I thank you so much. For 29 years old, you're remarkable. It's going to be wonderful to watch your career and see where you go.
So it's my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. And as we wrap up, great questions. I thank you. I love this new format. And I invite you to come over. Anna will be here and happy to sign some books for you. We've got incredible books that I know you'll like to pick up and have at your office or to share with the guy who's being rude to people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
very much.